And welcome back to another special edition of the Vulcan Nation podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Barnhart, Director of Alumni Relations. With me today, we have a special guest, another special guest. I'm very pleased to welcome Ed Eagle, classes of 94 and 96. He's an editorial producer with Major League Baseball and a recording artist. Ed, welcome to the Vulcan Nation.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I don't, being up here in Toronto, I don't have much chance to interact with folks at CalU anymore, except for my friends. So I'll tell you a quick thing off the bat. My wife's Canadian. She's from Toronto, and she's met a lot of my old friends at Cal, especially from the Greek community. And she says that we're like a cult. Like, we're so stuck together. We're such good friends. She gets sick of hearing about all my CalU stories. So, you know, I might be out of the country, but, you know, there's still a lot of CalU in my heart.
No, that's good. And you know what? Actually, there's a small but strong pocket of soccer alumni that live up in like the Toronto, Canada area. So you guys are representing, holding it down for us. So we definitely appreciate that. Well, Ed, again, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day, man. I know you're busy and we've been trying to connect, and especially I'm sure with like the season coming up, you know, you've got a lot on your plate. So we'll be very respectful of your time. We'd like to hop right in, allow our guests to kind of introduce themselves and their backgrounds to our viewers, you know, in case folks that were here and didn't know you, or folks that maybe came before or after you that just aren't aware of your story. But if you give us your background, kind of, you know, your CalU story and where you are now.
Do an introduction first. My name's Ed Eagle. Like you said, I graduated in 94 with a BA in poli-sci and 96 with a counseling master's. I spent the last 20 years with Major League Baseball, including 6 as a traveling beat reporter covering the Pirates at stadiums across the country. In the last 14 years, I've been an editorial producer here in Toronto. I'm also a musician, and I started an international community of independent artists called the New Artist Spotlight, which has really taken off, and is probably the reason that you invited me in the first place, even more than the Pirate stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like as a diehard Pirates fan, we don't talk about that too much, you know. But no, I mean, and really just there's many reasons why I invited you, Ed, but those not being the last of them. But I mean, that's how kind of I got turned on to it was, you know, during quarantine, you know, we've had like some of these like groups pop up like on Facebook and just in like the different spotlights, stuff that different alumni are doing. So, you know, that's definitely part of our outreach. So we do want to talk though a little bit about your story and kind of, you know, our marketing campaign right now is unlock your story, right? Students come like a blank slate, and their time here allows them to like open doors and find pathways and that kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about how you unlock your story, Ed. What kind of opportunities or pathways, or, you know, what helped shape your narrative during your time here at the university?
Ryan, I should be the poster boy of what Cal can do for people. Seriously, I grew up from McKeesport, and I grew up poor in McKeesport, so you can imagine how that was. Really, I wrote down a little bit to talk about it, but honest to goodness, for all the stuff that I've been fortunate enough to do in my life, attending CalU and joining Delta Sigma Phi were probably 2 of the most impactful decisions in my life. And I had my best friend from high school, Bob Busick, to thank for both. He was a year older than me. I came up to visit him one weekend while I was still in high school. I decided that day I was gonna join Delts and come to Cal. And it's so cool that you said the unlocking part, because I didn't really realize that was the campaign now. But yeah, let me tell you about it, because I was at Cal for a long time for different things. The most important thing that Cal did for me was to open my eyes to the possibilities that were out there and allow me to basically go as far as hard work would take me. It started off with Delts, then I became like the interim vice president for the Interfraternity Council when my brother Doug Skirbitz got called to the first Iraq War. By the end of my sophomore year, I was vice president of student government. I was on student cabinet running $1 million budget. And this is, I mean, I could barely scrape $2 together for food. So running $1 million budget by the time I was, 19 was a pretty big deal. Next year, I was student government president, and I was able to lobby politicians in Harrisburg for better funding for the state system schools, which was kind of cool because I could have never afforded to go. My parents were both, they were both steel workers at the time, laid off at the time. Like McKeesport, I'm from McKeesport. You can imagine,
Absolutely.
That's all I have to say. So when I came to Cal, it was on grants, It was on student loans. It was on hard work, doing a student job, a job while I was there. But mostly it was getting involved. But I'll tell you some of the other things I was able to do just from being a poor kid. And I don't think I'm exaggerating saying I might have been like the poorest kid at Cal U my first couple of years, like because for various reasons. But yeah, and by the end of it, I was student government president. I was class president. I helped to hire Dr. Armeni. I was on that committee. I was the only student on the master planning committee. So all those beautiful buildings you guys have, we were talking about that in the early 90s when I was still a student. So that was cool, and I don't know, I got to write a column for the Cal Times. I had no intention ever to be a sports writer, but there I was, writing a column for the Cal U Times. I had my own MLB baseball show on CUTV. I used to call some basketball games for CUTV in 91.9. So coming from a poor background and growing up in a rough place like McKeesport, getting these kind of opportunities was a game changer for the path that my life has taken. I mean, there's nothing to compare it to. Cal U changed my life in ways that I'll never be able to, no way anything of this like this would have happened without Cal U. It's just
No,
not
sure.
possible.
When you say that poster boy, you like that's the definition. I think we look up that in the dictionary, and your picture's right there for sure. So let's talk about that a little more. So all those things you did, from student government to SAI to you name it, and then how does the little like at the you just kind of threw it in there like, oh, I had a little article for Cal Times. So how does that like then unlock kind of your career from there? Like, was that the impetus, or was it more kind of like the other things, all of those like circumstances combined that kind of brought you to what you're doing today?
So when I graduated from Cal, my master's at Cal, I actually so you notice I didn't talk about any academic stuff.
Yeah,
So for me, it was
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
for me, I'm one of those people who I did fine in grades. I got like a 3.5 for my master's. I started the PhD actually at IUP before I got hired to do another job. So yeah, I started at Cal, and I got a graduate assistantship at Cal, and then I worked for SAI for a few years. But then I was offered a job at Graceland University in Iowa to be the leadership, actually the program director for their leadership development department, and I was basically an administrator with faculty status. So I was also like the leadership of. I wrote the curriculum for classes, so that was kind of cool. I didn't even have my PhD at the time. I was just started working on it, and I was able to be a professor and leading a department at 29 years old. So that was kind of cool.
It's pretty cool.
But
yeah.
I wanted to get back to Pittsburgh, and two of my fraternity brothers actually. One of them is Chris the Baker. He was his birthday is Christmas time. I came home for Christmas break that year, and I was at a party at his house. He works for the Pirates. He and Jeff Hammond, another one of my fraternity brothers, work for the Pirates, and they said, "We know we'd like to come back to Pittsburgh." They just started this thing with MLB.com where they're going to have people writing stories and following the team around. And are you interested in joining? I was like, I had literally just read a book about the start of ESPN, the first couple of years of ESPN. So I was reading that. I'm like, I have a chance to get in on the ground floor. Like I was one of the first, probably 100 people maybe ever hired by MLB.com. So probably less than that. And one of the few that are still around since the beginning. So I knew that I had a chance to start something, different on the ground floor. Now I had moonlighted while I was at Cal as a reporter for realpittsburgh.com. I think it's the WPXI. It was their website back in the day. So I had a column on the Pirates, and I was doing some other stuff for them, in addition to working at Cal. So I've always been kind of busy. I've been trying to, put a lot of different balls in the air at the same time. So how did it help? I don't know, man. I don't know. Just being a leader. I think just learning leadership stuff and learning how to juggle a lot of things at once, having confidence, doing the baseball show while I was at Cal was obviously cool. And like, who gets to do their own Major League Baseball show while you're,
pretty awesome.
But I was able to talk my way into it. I was able to convince Jim Turdinich, who was the PR director of the Pirates. He's still the PR director of the Pirates back in the 90s, that, because we're an award-winning TV station, we deserve a right to have a full-time press pass. And it just hit me in the middle of the night right before I went to bed one time. And I was like, we should try to get a press pass for the Pirates. We have an award-winning, and I was lucky enough to be on the broadcast, the basketball broadcast that won the national award, this CUTV award for it. So I was able to take that idea and say, hey, why don't you give us a full credential? We got one. I couldn't believe it. We actually got a full credential for Cal U. And so we did some moonlighting there, and I got to take students every single game. Like one of us, myself and another would go, we do interviews with players. They do interviews and I do the camera, or they hold the camera and I do the interviews. And it was pretty cool. It was a great experience I know I still, friends from back then still tell me that was one of the coolest experiences of life, to be able to go down on the stadium floor at Three River Stadium, interview Greg Maddux and these other, Hall of Fame guys. So yeah, that was cool, man. I've always tried to give people new experiences, offer them experiences they wouldn't have been able to get, because, I had my mentors like Barry Nicolai and Alan James and those guys, and they showed me things that I had never been aware of. So I've always really tried to play that forward, especially for people, like I was the advisor for the Black Student Union at my university in Iowa, and I won an award from the Black Student Union at Cal right before I left too. And I've always tried to help out kids who wanted to help themselves out, and that's connected in those groups.
I think that's important too, and like you said, kind of like that, and alluding to the academics thing, but I think a lot of the learning comes outside of the classroom. I mean, that's
Sure.
like the experiential pieces.
Absolutely.
That, you know what I mean, and so it's very obvious and evident, from your story. I think that's very cool. You talked briefly there, mentioned Barry Nicolai, mentioned Alan James. How about some of that other supporting cast? Every good story has a good supporting cast. So who are the other folks, maybe, other faculty, maybe other advisors, your friends from your time at Cal U? Who are the folks that kind of like stuck with you and are maybe still stuck with you now?
Yeah. My best friend is Cliff Foster. We're still best friends. He was the best man at my wedding. Especially all my groomsmen were actually Delp brothers. So fraternity brother. He was in the band Show Enough. I'm not sure if you remember them or not, in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
Formula 411. They've opened up for some major acts. He's actually the one that inspired me. So I have, here you go. You can see my office a little bit. Music is a big thing for me. So
very nice. Very nice.
He said, when are you going to start using those guitars for something more than noodling around? So he, getting off the beaten path a little bit, he's the one that inspired me to start putting music out there for other people to listen to. And that was only a year ago. And so he's a big guy for that.
All right, well, let's talk, before we get back to the supporting cast, let's just sidebar there for a second. That's a perfect opportunity. So the music thing, like, was that ever a thought when you were a Cal? Like, did you dabble with the underground, or or was this kind of like a later, like, hobby pickup kind of thing?
Yeah, so I guess here's the best way to describe it. As someone who was poor, I couldn't afford not to do well in school and like I had to have my shit together. Sorry for the language, but I couldn't afford to not. I just was not I was gonna be at least middle class. That was my goal. Like, I'm coming out of Cal U at least middle class. I'm not going back to the hood. So I didn't want to take that risk of potentially failing, because I'm a stats guy, man. Being in baseball, I'm a stats guy, and I know the stats are heavily weighed against you. And what are the odds that I was going to be a baseball writer either? Like one of the few beat reporters in all of America. You know what I mean? So those things they weren't even that wasn't even in my vision. So no, I wasn't thinking of music. I was thinking I need to get out of here and get a good job. So music came later, after I'd kind of settled down and had kids and that kind of stuff, where I had the chance. Now, I've been playing since I was about 13 or 14. I've been playing for a long time, and I'm fortunate to have some natural ability at playing and singing. So was lucky there. But yeah, I guess it was just slowly I became more comfortable singing in front of people and playing in front of people, and I just did it. It took a while, but being student government president, I had to talk in front of hundreds of people every single week. So being in front of a crowd has never bothered me. But singing in front of a crowd is a little different, because you never know what people are going to think when you're singing.
For sure. But it's very cool though to see all that come out too now. Just you're a man of many talents. I think that's very.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think, and that's very reflective of what you did at your time here at the university too. But let's go back to the cast. So any other folks that like really influential during your time here at the university?
The biggest two were definitely Barry Nicolai. I owe him so much, and Alan James. Both of those guys, they took me under their wing, and they really, and Dr. Armeni. Dr. Armeni couldn't have been better to me. I love that guy. I'm so glad. I was so proud to be on the hiring committee, because, I know we won't get into that on this show, but you know, I love that guy. I thought he was a great guy, and he did nothing but help me all the way through. And for a president of the university to have an open door policy with students, especially when you're a student leader, to feel comfortable at any time going to see him. You know, I played racquetball with him. He used to kick my ass all the time at racquetball. He was a good dude, man. That's the kind of guy. He really, you know, he really changed the way, made Cal more of a forward thinking. I still feel like when I first got there, Cal was still in the just beyond being a teacher's college kind of almost. It still felt more like that. And he made us a full-fledged university with, you know, university ideals. And so I give him a lot of credit for that as well.
No, absolutely. And I think, like, you know, he was very influential in my decision to come here, you know, and it definitely influenced my philosophy and how I approach higher education. Absolutely. You know, and I think there's not many people that he didn't inspire in some way, shape, or form, you know, and it's real cool now. Like, we just were able to redo the President's Hall, and they finished his portrait. It's up there now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's, you know, he's back where he belongs, I guess, kind of thing. So yeah, very cool stuff. All right. So that's like our serious part of the podcast. So thank you for sharing all that, all the heavy stuff. Well, we'd like to have some fun here too. I'm a fun guy. At least I like to think so. So if you're cool, we'll play a little bit of a lightning round, kind of make it a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. What's the coolest part of your job?
So for me, it was meeting the guys from the 79 Pirates, because that's how I got into baseball. I was 8 years old in 79. So, and getting to know guys like Chuck Tanner and Kent DeColvey, they knew me. Like, they called me on a first name basis. And, you know, to have the Pirates GM leaving a message on your answering machine to get back to them. And I also had a chance to co-host the Dave Littlefield show on KDKA for a season with Greg Brown, which is kind of cool. You know, it's kind of cool. People from Cal will contact me now, and I wasn't even sure that was you. I didn't know that was actually you. You were the Ed Eagle who was covering the Pirates. I just didn't even realize it. And that's not like such a popular name, but so it was kind of cool. I'll tell you something, Ryan, that's really cool. So when I was the beat writer covering the Pirates, there were 3 of us who traveled around with the team, and 2 of us were from Cal. The other one was Bob Dvorak, who worked for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Yeah.
And he's a good buddy of mine too. So 2 of the 3 people covering, and Mark Caboli, who actually covered the Pirates for the McKeesport Daily News back then when I was there. And I'm friends with him too, also went to Cal. So a lot of Cal power there.
And yeah, you know, like, and it's funny because I just talked to Cody Elias. He's a good friend of mine. He graduated in 2012. He's the multimedia producer for the A's. So,
nice.
You know, we got fingers in deep in MLB for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is our running joke for the podcast. We're 3 seasons in. This has been a question since day one. Remembering that it is a PG-13 podcast, so I will have some editing work to do here. Can you give me a favorite memory from your time here at the university?
So anyone who was around in the 80s and 90s knows anything about delts will know that 99.7% of anything that happened outside of student government and that kind of stuff is absolutely beyond PG-13. And thank God we didn't have cameras then. So I'm going to go an exact opposite way. I'm going to go, because just by being a delt from the 80s and 90s, there was automatically, people had assumptions about us. So I'm just going to skip past that. I'm going to go with something on the opposite end that breaks those kind of stereotypes, but it also has to do with delts. So the night before commencement, we had a senior dinner. I'm not sure if you guys still do that. And the senior class president talks. So I gave a speech to my class. And I was at a table with, so we had 15 pledge brothers, and I think 8 of us ended up graduating. And, you know, we'd all worked for years to reach our dreams. And I was like super proud to be able to give a speech and sit with my brothers who had been with me for like day when we lived in the house. Our fraternity house burned down when I lived there. Like we escaped with our lives barely. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. So
yeah.
We gone through some crazy stuff, man. So it gives me goosebumps right now thinking about sitting at that table. I'm just thinking Brian Ventura, Brian Conti, guys that I pledged with there. I'm sitting there thinking about, man, we did it. You know what I mean? Like, we did it. Like, I remember the first day of pledging, they were like, half you guys are going to make it through pledging. The other half aren't going to make it till you graduate. It's up to you on who does and who doesn't. And I could still think of my pledge master, Rob Canott, saying that as we sat outside the Delt House to go in for the first time. And then years later to be sitting at that table graduating. And, you know, one of the guys, Brian Ventura, was officer. He's still an officer in the Marines, and he got a nice special thing at the commencement because of that too. So anyway, though, the opposite of what you might think of if you know anything about the 90s, 80s, 90s Delta. Well, there's a reason there aren't Deltas on campus anymore, and there haven't been since the late 90s. So, yeah, we had a lot of fun. We led things, but we also had our fingers in a lot of other things as well, I guess, many.
No, but definitely full circle there for sure, for sure. We can appreciate that. All right, so we're also on this kick. We're building the ultimate Cal U playlist. So
Okay.
do you have a song? And we could take two. We'll allow two. Song or songs that remind you of your time at Cal U?
I think for anyone of my generation, you should not even accept California Love by Dre and Tupac because it's just too obvious.
It's the number one song on the. It was just automatic. You know, that was an automatic pick, right?
Yeah. I can't hear that song now without immediately thinking of parties in the adult basement or some other fraternity house basement. But also the song, full disclosure, Ryan sent these questions ahead of time, so I was able to think about this a little bit. And being a reporter, of course, I had to write notes here. So my number one song that takes me back, if I'm like sitting out on my back deck here at home on a nice spring day, first warm spring day in the sun, having a beer, the Alabama song by the Doors, the whiskey. Oh, show me, oh wait, that song. That man, that song just takes me back to sitting on the Delt House deck, looking at everyone on a warm day, looking at everyone, going back and forth to class. Because we were right across the street from Old Main, where there's a parking lot there now, but like we could see everyone coming in at class. I could roll out of bed into class of world cultures within 3 minutes, literally from my bed to the door. So that was cool, man. So thinking about that song takes me back. I have so many great memories of Cal. Seriously, like I am the poster boy for why I think Cal is amazing. Like I would talk Cal up all the time. There's a lot of the people that I work with, of course, I have people I work with are from Harvard, Penn, Stanford, anywhere you can think of. Not many people from Cal are doing it like in my job. So I'm always talking us up. Cal, I never heard of it. Yeah, well, Cal, we had $1 million budget, students run it. We're the first student association ever.
Yeah.
We have a award-winning TV station. I was always about talking to stuff, man. I'm super proud of Cal.
No, we appreciate that, man, and we appreciate all of you, everything that you've accomplished. You know what I mean? And so we're also going to add your music to the playlist as well. So
Thank you.
folks that want to check out Ed's stuff, make sure you check the playlist out. It's launched already. We have an episode around that will air before this one, so make sure you check it out. Find his music there as well. Okay, cool, and so we're also settling the great food debate. So you're McKee, as a stated McKeesport guy. Did you have a favorite meal on campus or within the Mon Valley that you could like take your buddies to and like, hey, we're gonna take this like trip to go eat here? Do you have a favorite meal for us or place to eat?
I do, and I still talk about it, and I don't think it exists anymore. So it was a steak red top. Do you remember this at all? The steak red top pizza?
Armando's Pizza. Yeah.
Yes, Armando's. Yeah. I couldn't think of the name of it. Armando's.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, so they're not in Cal anymore, but they are in Charleroi still. They still have. So next time you're around here, man, take a trip to Charleroi. You get your steak top or red top. They have them both still. So
nice. Yeah, I'm down. I had no idea it still existed. But yeah, that's it. And my shout out to my good friend Denise Whitehead, who used to work there and hook us up with them too. She's used to be big into Cal sports and stuff like that too. I think her sister works for Cal. Anyway, sorry.
No, absolutely.
Chrissy Whitehead. I don't know her last name now. Chrissy Whitehead.
Doppelhauer. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, and her husband Mike's an alumnus also. Yeah, so
there we go.
Yeah, like see full 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon right here. All right, so Ed, man, I can't thank you enough. Seriously though, thanks for coming around and
it was a lot of fun
hanging out with us today, man. I appreciate you taking the time. But before we get out of here, we always like to let our guests plug their pluggables, especially side hustles. So folks that maybe want to like check out your, stuff that you're doing with MLB or find your music, where can they find that out? How can they connect with you that way?
You'll still see my byline every once in a while on MLB.com if you check that. I do a lot of like historical stuff, evergreen stuff that might get updated throughout the year. For New Artist Spotlight, which we haven't really talked about, I'll do a quick thing about that. So when I first started making music, it was impossible to share it with people and get anyone to listen to it. So I started my own international community of independent musicians, and we had people from around the world, all volunteers. It's 100% free. and we've got, you know, thousands of listeners. If you look at my songs on Instagram, for a guy who has no record company like that, you'll see I have a lot of listens, which is kind of crazy for someone who's an independent artist. But that all started on newartistspotlight.org. We also have our own podcast. We have our interviews. We have music reviews. We have AMAs with people who are on the record label and that kind of stuff. So, and if you're from Cal and you are a new musician, independent musician, and you want to get on our playlist, you want to figure out what our community is all about and get a jump start for your career, absolutely, I'll hook you up. Look me up on Instagram at ed_eagle_music. Same with Facebook and Twitter. And make sure you say that you listen to the Cal Alumni podcast, and I'll make sure I hook you up.
And we'll make sure we dump all those links into the show notes here, so everybody will be able to find those as well. But let's talk. I mean, we have some time. We can talk. And I do apologize for that. Let's talk about that a little bit. So, you know, this whole creation. Not only are you just, you know, producing your own music, but you're running the whole website and the whole shebang, right? I mean, that's all generated from you. Do you have like a team that supports it? Or
yeah.
How many artists are you guys up to now? I mean, it's very interesting to see like kind of passion projects, you know, what I mean?
Right.
And that kind of thing too.
So I'll kind of explain to the people listening how it works now for music. It's like you can't just go on MTV and get break out like that, right? It's really hard to break out now, especially record companies don't spend money on new artists as much anymore. So you have to get on a Spotify curated playlist, and a Spotify curated playlist that's kind of like being on MTV now. It like used to be. It's you get heard by hundreds of thousands of people. You could get picked up by a record label, all that kind of stuff. So it's almost impossible to do it though. It's easier to find a needle in a haystack than it is to get picked up on a Spotify curated playlist. But what I decided to do with some of my old Cal U leadership skills was I started my own group. I found that, you know, it was really hard to get on playlists, these kind of big playlists. You had to go through tastemakers, which repulses me, even such thing as tastemakers. Who can determine what's good and what isn't good music? So I just started to just reaching out to other independent artists, and it grew. And this just started like last June, and already we've I don't even know how many we have, hundreds of independent artists from around the world. We have my team of like 25 mods that help me out. They're from around the world, and one's a doctor, another one's a chemical engineer, astrophysicist, and these people all make music. They make incredibly good music, but they also but it's their side hustle for most of them. And I've absolutely found that the people who are successful in other forms outside of music seem to also be doing a really good job of promoting themselves and helping us run this site. So yeah, we have hundreds of people on there. We have thousands of listeners, thousands of followers. It's ridiculous. And I had first thought there must be other people like this. Naively, I thought there must be other groups like this. Haven't found anything like it. It's just a really unique group of people from around the world working together to promote each other.
And that's awesome, because you would think that like there would be some, you know, something out there that like independent artists can, you know, would collectively support each other through or be able to get their, but like the fact that there's not, and you were able to like meet that need during a pandemic. I mean, like that's pretty cool, man. Like especially like you said, with the lack of shows and, you know, the normal channels that most artists would have to get to get observed or get their music.
Right.
So to offer that, I think at a time when people need it, you know, big ups to you, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, Brian. I don't think this could have happened without COVID, honestly. I mean, I wouldn't have had the extra time personally. I have a wife and 3 kids, a full-time job. You know, it's hard. I'm just doing it. I'm doing it on the side too. Totally a side hustle. And we all are. Like I said, most of the people who are helping me run it are also very busy otherwise. So it was kind of a perfect storm in that sense. And it's also, you know, it's a selfish business, man. So many sharks. So it's going to be hard to find people who are willing to volunteer their time to help others in this business. And it's just, that's what I came to see. That's why I was naive at the beginning of just how many scam artists and sharks in the water, man. It's a dirty, filthy business. I would never want to do it full time. I would never want to do it as my real job, because my wife has asked me, well, you know, what if this got popular enough because it's grown? Like, I'm not sure how much you've even paid attention since the beginning when I first posted on that cow thing to now. It's like exploded.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's crazy how much it's exploded. And it's only getting bigger. Like it's only, you know, my Instagram follows are doubling every month or something like that. It's like there's a major need for it out there. And Hopefully other people will copy our. I'm not like trying to just keep it all to myself. I want other people to copy what we're doing too. But we've found that other people have tried, and it's just too much work. It's too, and we're free. Oh, that's what I should say. That's the biggest difference between us and everyone else. We're 100% free. We won't. If you even offered it, because a lot of times now, what people will do is they have popular playlists like mine. They will say, if you give me $500, I'll put you at the top of my playlist for a month, or something crazy like that. What new artist can afford that, right? So
Right,
we
right.
don't do that. If you earn the top spots on ours, and if you're a mod, you have a chance to be up top, and as long as you're helping promote everyone else, you're on there. So it's not a pay for placement. It's a work for placement, and the people who want to bust their ass, they're going to do the best.
No, and that's it. And I think that's very like reflective of that kind of hustle in anything, music, theater. I mean,
Mm,
we have a lot of folks from Cal that I'm friends with that like are in acting, are into music, and that's kind of very indicative of their nature is like this hustle, like grind, you know, rise and grind, basically kind of
for
mentality. So
sure,
it's very
for
cool to
sure.
see that. All right. Well, man, again, I can't thank you enough. It's been really nice to, catch up and talk to you and just kind of like unpack your story, just to see all the successes that you're bringing and kind of how you've reflected the university throughout your career. So thanks again for taking some time for us today.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and shout out to all the old friends at Cal U. Anyone listening, drop me a line. The Cal has made such an incredible impact on my life, and I'm so appreciative of it. And I love this. I love to spread the gospel of Cal U.
We love that. So for Ed Eagle, this is Ryan Barnhart. Thanks again for joining us on the Vulcan Nation. We'll catch you next time. California